Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Creative Mountain Mama podcast. Today, I am joined by Tara at the Maverick Mama. She is living her off-grid life in the Arizona northern countryside. She talks about homeschooling. She has a company called Biblical Birth and a little bit about homesteading as well. Thank you for joining me, Tara.
Thanks for having me.
We are live in your garden.
Oh, well, today was a fun morning. I was kind of afraid I wasn't going to make my meeting because we are off grid. And yesterday it was so cloudy that we have a full solar system here. And all of our power is solar generated unless there's really bad weather or an emergency or something. And we run our generator, but the generator would not run yesterday and it has broken down. And so this morning, I haven't even had coffee. We were totally out of power. And I had to be careful. I didn't even think I could do my hair this morning before the interview, and maybe the internet might go out. So I'm just so grateful that I had enough power to make it through the day.
What kind of
All,
generator are you guys running?
oh gosh, I honestly can't even tell you. That's totally my husband's area.
Fair. Honey, what is it?
He's been trying to fix it for like 2 days, but that is one skill that you definitely want to have when you move off grid is how to fix things because you're the only person that you have to be able to do that. So yeah, he's thankfully very mechanical and I'm sure he'll figure it out today, but it was just such horrible weather yesterday. He couldn't be out there for too long. So yeah.
That is off-grid living in a nutshell. Can you tell me
Yes.
a little bit about how you guys made that move and how you got started? What was that transition like?
Oh yeah. Um, it was a lot started when I got really sick 2 years after having my last baby, my fourth baby. Um, and nobody to this day really knows what caused it or what happened. But I just got really, really sick. Um, I was still had like all the baby weight after my last pregnancy, and I think it was like 215 or so pounds. And I was so sick that I lost 60 pounds within about 3 to 4 months. And that's just really, really fast. And it was because I couldn't eat anything. Anytime I would eat, I would have like stomach cramps that were just horrible pain and running to the bathroom and vomiting and all of this stuff. And uh, even was bedridden for about a month where I was just in constant pain. And so I feel like it was definitely when God woke me up and we had been kind of slipping into some uh, bad habits of just, I guess, a typical suburban life where my husband would work 9 to 5 and he'd be gone most of the day. And I was home with the kids. We've always homeschooled, so they've always been home with me. But, you are so pressured to keep your schedule busy, busy, busy. So we were busy all the time. We had crazy things happening to us in our neighborhood. Like one day we woke up and SWAT team was in our backyard saying that there was a horrible criminal in the house behind us that they were
Jeez.
going after, and we all needed to get down in case there was shooting and stuff. And I was struggling with anxiety um and bad eating habits. I think I was just really starting to eat a lot of processed food and junk food and sugar and, kind of the typical mom diet when you have a bunch of littles and you're just trying to survive drinking lots and lots of coffee. and and my body, I think, just freaked out. It just started rejecting everything. My hormones were out of whack, and um, it was forcing me to fast, and lose all this weight and really detox, I think, my body. And um, that was really when we woke up and we're thinking, what are we doing here? That I feel like I felt like life was just flying by. But we were so busy and caught up in so many other things, watching TV every evening and stuff, and missing out on so many amazing experiences. So we decided, when the pandemic hit, my husband's job went online and I work all online, um, that we didn't have to be there anymore. So we just started talking like, what if we move? Let's get out of here. Let's go. We've always liked the idea of homesteading, so, and being out rural somewhere. So we thought, well, now's our chance, let's do it. And we did. We actually bought a motorhome and we lived in the motorhome for 1 year while traveling around the US trying to find where we would want to buy land and homestead. We're from Phoenix, so we're a little tired of the desert biome. And what was funny is we ended up back in the desert. So now we're here, on 20 acres, and our goal is or the main reason, I guess, was because, one thing, I just felt spiritually led to do this. I, really, after being sick, the only thing that would help me in my painful moments while I was sick was singing and listening to praise and worship music, and just really connecting to God through that time. My mom is an amazing praying mom, so I could feel like everyone that I knew was praying for me, and she would come in my room and pray over me and stuff. And so that was a really big waking up time for me spiritually too. And I felt, led to be out away from all the noise. And it was just, there's just so much noise in the city. Not just the air conditioners of your neighbors and the
Right.
airplanes always going overhead and the dogs barking or the cars driving by on the freeway, all of that noise, but also just the TV constantly going, the neighbors talking to you all the time about scary things, or you know, current events, which lately have been a little crazy
Yeah.
and scary. And it's just, you know, things that always that will encourage fear. And we had to get away from that. We felt like we just really needed more peace. And so the place to do that, we felt, was out in nature. And it really has been. I mean, it's been amazing. We absolutely love it. We love being out in the elements and in the sun. And even though the desert has some crazy weather, it has very extreme weather, but it's so cool and just so awe-inspiring. And I heard somebody else say the other day about how we are really creatures made to worship, and I really feel that now that I'm in nature, because I catch myself all the time being like, oh wow, look at that, that's amazing, that's so beautiful, wow, I can't believe you made that, God. that's
Hmm.
that's incredible. And the fact that the God who made all of this also knows me, and loves me and has a personal relationship with me. And that's just so incredible. So it's been hugely beneficial on many levels, spiritually, physically. I'm the most fit and active I've ever been. Digging in the garden, building things all the time, chasing animals. We have rabbits that constantly get out, so we're chasing rabbits and catching them all the time. I'm getting fit now, carrying feed bags. So yeah, it's been awesome on a lot of different levels.
Can you walk me through a little bit of your infrastructure there?
Yeah. So actually, this property was my parents' property before, and they bought it and that's why we ended up coming back to Arizona, because they were wanting to get rid of it. Um, and it's 22 acres, and me and my dad built the cabin that's here and we started when I was about 12 years old. And we would come up every weekend from Phoenix, which is like a 3.5 hour drive. Each weekend we'd come up. It was before they built a Home Depot up here. So we would have to carry and haul all of our um, equipment and all of the materials and everything. And we would work a little bit each 3-day weekend he had, and then head back to Phoenix for the week. And we did this for 7 years and, until I was graduating high school. And then something really tragic happened when I graduated high school that same year. A really good friend of my dad's who lived up here never smoked a day in his life, but he came down with lung cancer. And he was coming down to our house in Phoenix to get treatments. And so we were very close and we were watching the whole thing really closely with them. And he ended up passing away. And I think it just took all the wind out of my dad's sails, and he abandoned the property. And the cabin was about 90% done. But at that point, the rats took it over.
Mm.
And so it was rat infested and just a huge amount of damage that was done to the cabin. And at first I kept telling them, no, 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 I do not want to take on that project. But that's what we do. That's what we did in Phoenix before. It was fix and flip houses. And so eventually we decided, you know what, it'll be a good place to start. Our plan was always to fix and flip it and then sell it, and then we will move to the land that we wanted to go homestead on. But now that we're here, we're really starting to fall in love with it, and I think we're going to end up staying here. But so when we got here, the cabin had to be totally stripped of everything, all the way down to the studs, and then redone. And we've been working on that. And then we also built a chicken coop, and we built a greenhouse and a garden area. We're about to build an even bigger garden area because now we realize this is way too small for us. And we've also built some tiny cabin Airbnb rentals. So we've just been building, building, building. When you just have raw land that you can do whatever you want with, I mean, it's like the projects never stop because, you're always creating and being able to come up with some new project you want to work on. So it's been fun. We love it. And that's what my family's always done. So thankfully, I already had experience in building and renovating things. So that was really helpful to know before we got out here.
What's your yield, harvest wise? And then are you using the animals that you're raising as well?
Yeah, for animals, we have ducks, turkeys, and chickens. And those three, we raise them, and then we'll also process them, and we have them for meat. And I have determined that turkeys are my favorite for meat birds.
Yeah.
They have the most meat and they grow the quickest. And for the ratio for how much food they eat, you get the most meat out of a turkey. And they also are just kind of easier to care for. But the chickens, we have a flock of, gosh, I don't even know because it's really hard to count chickens because they're always moving.
Sure.
But I think it's like 40 chickens. And we love having fresh eggs, and then we'll have specific meat birds that we will process. And then we have rabbits. Those we don't eat because they're just way too cute. But we use their poo for fertilizer for our gardens and stuff. And right now I have a greenhouse, and you can see these 4 beds behind me. They're 4 by 8 foot. And they were full last year, but I realized that it's not enough for me to have extra to can and preserve for the winter. So over this winter, we've still had to go to the grocery store. And but my goal is that we won't have to do that as much. I don't want to have to get most of my food from the grocery store. I want to be able to have most of my own food here. Of course, there's always little things you'll still have to go get. But so this spring, we're planning on building another garden area that is going to be much, much larger. I think we measured it out to like 50 by 50 foot. And it'll just be a giant in-ground garden area. But here where we're at, our soil is only about 6 inches deep, and then you hit a layer of caliche,
Mm.
and that is just rock, like a sandstone rock. And you can't get through it. Like there's no digging a hole here. You have to like use a pickaxe or a big heavy piece of equipment or something, because you just can't do that here because you just hit rock. So we're having to bring in a lot of dirt, some big loads of soil to put on top. So there's a lot of preparation and outside sources that you have to bring in to get started. And that was one thing I didn't really factor in. I was really hoping that we would be able to use a lot of our natural resources here on the property, but just because of our location, it's really, really hard to do that. But if you're in a different area, though, you wouldn't have to do that as much as we do.
Sure. Do you have water access through a well or is there natural water nearby?
We have a well, we have a solar well, and when my dad bought the property about 20 or so years ago, um, he had the well drilled at that point. But then when we took it over 2 years ago now, it had been struck by lightning.
Oh, jeez.
And yeah, we have some crazy lightning and thunderstorms here. It's so cool though, because we live in a valley and there's a ridge that goes around us on three sides, and the thunder just ricochets off these ridges, and it's amazing. It's so awe-inspiring. But like you can really like feel the power of God in these thunderbolts. I'm like sitting there praying, and I'm like, oh please,
Yeah.
protect us, because it can get crazy. But um yeah, it got struck by lightning, so when we took it over, we had to redo it. We had to have the whole thing pulled and have a new well pump put in. But we have really great water, and it's definitely the most important thing on the homestead. Without water, none of this would be possible, obviously. So, but a lot of people in the area, they will drill wells and never hit water. And ours is 220 foot deep where it hits water. And many people have to just haul water. And I can see that we would never be able to have a homestead if we had to haul water.
Mhm.
So we're really blessed that we have that.
And I do want to switch gears just a little bit. I know you talked about being a mama of four, and I know you have this business, Biblical Birth. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah, so that's my background actually, is in the medical field. And I started out just loving biology and anatomy, and so I wanted to be a nurse. And I moved to Texas, which is actually where I'm originally from, and was going to go to nursing school. I was in nursing school for a while and working at a hospital at the same time. It was like a program that the hospital had that would put you through nursing school. And through that experience of working there, I just really started to see a lot of things. I saw that while there were a lot of great people who work in that field and who really do truly care about people, the way that the medical system is set up and the rules that the hospitals have, they are not for really truly for caring for people. They're really for making money. And it was all about the making money. And that just really bothered me. And I didn't want to be a part of that anymore. And I got pregnant with my first baby. And I started thinking, I don't want to birth here. And so I looked into alternative methods and started learning about home birth and birth centers and natural birth. And I had worked on the OB floor. And, and just because of what I had seen, it made me really interested in learning some other methods. So I started uh, reading every book that I could find. And I wanted to have a home birth with my first baby. I ended up transferring though to the hospital because I thought like I would just read all of these books and it would just come back to me during labor and I'd be able to use all these little techniques and tips that I had learned. But that's really not how it works. Things don't just come back to you really during labor. And because you just go to this different part of your mind, and it's just so instinctual. And I wasn't really thinking logically during that time. And that's actually the ultimate goal, is to not really be in that logical, rational mind, but instead you just go into this instinctual kind of part of your mind when you're giving birth, to let the body do what it needs to do on its own. And so I ended up transferring back to the hospital because I wanted some pain relief. And I went to the hospital that I actually worked at. And because I worked there and I knew everyone and they knew me, things went really fine for me. I mean, it was a healthy mom, healthy baby. And I always say, of course, that's the most important thing, but it's not the only important thing. And there were a lot of things that happened that I just really didn't feel satisfied with. Um, like, for example, here's a funny story. My doctor who was attending the labor, as my first baby was emerging, I had told them earlier, I want to do delayed cord clamping. And so don't clamp and cut the cord right away. Well, as the baby was crowning, like right at that moment coming out, the most special moment, my doctor looks up at me and goes, "So why do you want to do delayed cord clamping again?" And I'm just like, "I'm kind of busy right now. You need to just do what I say, like this is my experience." And I really had to advocate for myself. And then I thought, man, if anybody else had been in this same situation, it would have gone really different for them because, I was able to do that because I had the confidence and the knowledge, and I had um, the rapport with these people to be able to do that. So then I thought, well, I gotta teach moms. I need to become a childbirth educator so that I can help moms be prepared in case something like this were to happen for them. And so I started working with a midwife, and I was actually training to be a midwife myself, and just absolutely loved birth, and that became my passion. And then I learned about hypnobirthing. Hypnobirthing is a child method that uses breathing and relaxation techniques, and they teach you meditation practice. And it's like a guided meditation that you listen to throughout pregnancy, and then you use it during the labor. And I had an amazing experience with my second baby using hypnobirthing. Um, but the one thing about hypnobirthing is it's kind of either not spiritual at all, you could say, or it even kind of has a little bit of a new age uh, bend to it. And so I didn't like that my spirituality wasn't involved. So I started creating my own method, and it was using relaxation and meditation techniques still, because no matter what you do or believe, those are going to be really, really helpful during the birth.
Mm.
But also, I added a lot of Bible references and The guided meditations are very spiritual. Like one of them, you're imagining yourself walking with Jesus, and feeling his peace that he gives you, and just stuff like that. And, the Bible says that we're to meditate on his word. And I think that there's a big difference between the meditation of the Bible and the meditation of New Age. And the New Age meditation is all about clearing your mind. And that's what hypnobirthing teaches too, is clear your mind, don't really think about anything. Well, the Bible is specific on that you're to meditate on the word.
Hmm.
So it's not clearing the mind, because maybe a cleared mind could be vulnerable to, evil things. So it's really important that you're not just clearing the mind, but filling the mind with the right things. So my meditations are doing that. You're really meditating on the word and Bible verses and things like that. So that I used myself on my fourth baby's birth, and had a home birth this time. I finally got my home birth. My first was at the hospital, my second was at a birth center, my third was at another hospital, but I really wanted to try them because I was teaching classes and stuff at the time. A lot of my students were saying this place was amazing. They were super, super supportive of natural birth, and I had a midwife who was going to be there, and they did a really, really great job for a hospital. And so my fourth was finally that home birth I always wanted. And it was awesome and just an amazing experience. She was actually 10 pounds, 10 pounds, 9 ounces, and came in 2.5 hours.
Wow.
And I can honestly say I only had one moment of discomfort. I was so connected with God, and I was listening to worship music, listening to my meditations. And there was one moment where the worship music had stopped, and some people had arrived. I had a birth photographer and a doula as well at the birth, and so they were kind of distracting me a little bit, and I wasn't, being focused on it like I had been prior. And I remember just the fear crept in, and I thought, oh gosh, this is getting intense, and I could feel the fear, and then I could feel myself rationally think, like, I remember the thought, okay, this is it. This is your choice. Are you
Mm.
going to freak out with fear right now, or are you going to trust in him and let everything go the way it needs to go? And so I did, and I turned the worship music back on, and it was that song, You're No Longer a Slave to Fear.
Wow.
I was like, oh my gosh, that's a sign. Like, and it got me right back into the moment, and everything was great after that, and I never had any discomfort, and I just thought, wow, that was just the most amazing experience. And so yeah, now I teach it because I just really want to share it with other mamas. And I think that birth is one of those times in life. It's a rare time in life because we only do it a few times, where you are so uniquely open to these experiences. There's not a lot of times that we're open to the amazing power of the supernatural. And I think a lot of people might not like this answer, but suffering is when those times come. When you are suffering is when, your character grows the most. And when God has the biggest opportunity to, impact you. But it just depends on what choice you make. Are you going to, give into the fear and um, the, ideas that the world has of suffering? or are you going to allow the suffering to take place? That's kind of, I think, you um, being humble to the will of God. I actually saw another lady post that she had a supernatural birth experience, and she also had a pain-free birth. And there were actually a lot of women who got really mad at her for posting this, and they were saying some really horrible things to her in the comments because she said that she had a lot of faith during that time. And, they started kind of berating her, saying, well, that also means that if you don't have enough faith, then you are causing the bad things to happen to you. And I just thought, wow, I didn't really think that about it that way because I had never heard that perspective, but it is a little bit flawed because it's not that you having a lack of faith causes bad things to happen. I think that it's more of you have the faith, but that doesn't guarantee that no bad thing will happen. Part of the faith that you have is being okay with bad things happening too, because maybe that's his will at that time. Maybe it's going to happen for a reason that you have no idea about, because maybe it's affecting, maybe somebody's watching your story and they're just seeing how you're going through the tribulation, but yet still having faith during that suffering. And then that helps them to have faith, or that, opens their eyes to God, or whatever reason he has. The whole point of faith is not that you're just trying to prevent bad things from happening through faith, but that you are okay with good or bad things happening, no matter what, because your faith is that all things happen for good for those who love God, whether it's for you personally in, pain relief, or whether it's some other reason. But there is a reason. And that's the faith, is that you always know that he's got a good reason no matter what happens to you.
And Jesus promises that we will face trouble in this
Right.
life.
Right. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much, Tara. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, definitely. I'm so glad you had me on.